Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 292, titled Mrs. Fields Saves the Devil Season. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker in North and South Jersey. Mrs. Fields could be the next Grimace for your New Jersey Devils. I was really thinking of dressing up like a cookie, a Mrs. Fields cookie, chocolate chip cookie, at the next Devils game I attend. What do you think, Nick?
I mean, listen. It's one of the many suits. One of the many. I'm starting to wonder if this is a split personality for Sam Wu. Yeah, I mean, listen. The cookie is. I had a feeling they were going to say. Here's my conspiracy theory. Right, I'm gonna have a conspiracy theory about the cookie.
I have one, but go ahead.
I think their original plan, the Devils' original plan, was to save the cookie race win until the last home game of the season. Literally make Mrs. Fields lose every single time. But they saw how the season was going. They knew this fan base really needed one. They needed one tonight or last night. They needed a win. Mrs. Fields needed a win. Cookies across America. Oatmeal raisin, chocolate chunk, those M&M cookies they sell at Wawa. Everybody needed this win. And they gave it to us. They gave it to us, Sam. That's my thought process. I think the original plan was to wait until the last home game of the season, make it this triumphant win, finally, but they noticed where we were as a fan base, as a country. We needed it. We needed this Mrs. Fields win.
I feel a different conspiracy theory. I think I know what happened. Okay. I think you had Welsh Farms. My mother, back years ago, when I was a little tiny baby, I used to drink Welsh Farms. Actually had it delivered to the house. A real milkman back in the late 70s, believe it or not.
How old are you?
Me?
I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I was born in 1978. I don't act my age, but and I think what happened was Mrs. Fields signed off a check, a nice sponsorship check, and the Devils got it that day, and they're like, Mrs. Fields, you're gonna win one.
Win one for the Gipper.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just making up stuff like I normally do. But I'm into it. I was into Grimace. I dressed like Grimace during the playoffs, the Mets playoff run. Yeah,
and the Mets had a really nice run. If the Devils had the same run as the Mets this year, I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah,
would you not?
Look. I'm willing to dress up like a cookie to every Devils home game. I'm willing to. I have no shame.
Cookie puss. There you go. You just need the head, right?
You know what? I admittedly, and my Mrs. Wu is kind of rolling her eyes right now. I actually looked on eBay today to see if I can find a cookie costume. But yeah.
Listen, no, listen. Like I said, it did seem like I talk to this fan base every single day and different platforms and different mediums. There's fans who have who directly message me, and I do my best to respond when I can. Um, the vibes were low. I don't know how else. Like, I know it's just kind of a cliche way to say it, but the vibes were low. People were not happy. And like Friday, one of the worst days to be a fan. Between the trade deadline, and here's the thing: I think the trade deadline's strictly because of Cody Glass. I think the trade deadline's going to we're going to see that some of the reaction was unwarranted, but I think the just between that and the 6-1 loss to Winnipeg, and just looking like you're not a team at all, So the team just needed so much. You put two wins together, and I don't know if you know this, Sam, but according to the percentages, the Devils now have a 90% chance to make the playoffs because of the win over the Blue Jackets. The New York Rangers losing 4 in a row has really helped their efforts. You're looking at this wild card, like the bottom of the Eastern Conference just isn't good. When you really look at it, no offense to Columbus. Columbus is having a magical season. They've beaten some good teams, but everybody else just kind of Montreal and New York and Ottawa and
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, and I'm not even talking about the bottom of the Western Conference is dreadful, right? San Jose and Chicago, and there's one other team that it's Seattle's kind of down there. Those teams are dreadful. The bottom of the Eastern Conference is all floor raising teams that are down, Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. All these teams not good. And but you got to find 8 teams. And because all these teams keep losing, and when you face these Western Conference juggernauts like Vegas, Dallas, and Winnipeg, you lose. And it brings everybody down to the mean and kind of brings everybody up when you're playing the Chicagos and the San Jose's and the ilk. And when you're playing each other, right? Ottawa plays Montreal 5 or 6 times a year, and Detroit plays those teams 5 or 6 times a year. So you get to move up. Basically, what I'm saying is, when I saw that Montreal was back in the playoff race, I was pretty confident the Devils were safe. And I think you look at it and listen, I think that they are on a train heading down to a first round matchup with Carolina. I don't love that for the Devils because Carolina's just. I really like Logan Stankoven. I think he's a really good prospect. I'm really sad the Devils took Chase Stillman, who they traded for basically nothing. Well, I guess was he part of the Cody Glass trade? I'm now on my head spinning a little bit.
Yep.
He was part of the Cody Glass trade. Okay, so you got a decent player. I think Cody Glass is going to be a long-term member of this roster. I know I'm jumping on something that's very early. The trade I hated was the Brian Dumoulin trade, and no offense to the guy. Guy's a Stanley Cup winner. He's just kind of cooked. He just hasn't looked good in a while. And he gave up a premium for him, which I didn't understand. I like Herman Treff. I think he's an NHL player. So he gave up an NHL player, and then he gave up a second-round pick for a guy and you gave up all that so they cover some of his salary, and then you didn't need it. You didn't get anybody you wanted. So I don't know. I have some theories about that too. But one of 3 things happened, Sam. One, Tom Fitzgerald thought a deal was going to happen, and it didn't. Whether that's for somebody huge, I think. I don't think it's Rantanen, because I don't think we were on his list of teams he would sign with.
We weren't in the top 4?
I don't think so. No, I think it's you look at Dallas, Florida,
Although I do
Toronto.
believe that he consulted Holla about Carolina. Yeah, during the
Yeah,
Four
maybe.
Nations.
Yeah, and that might have helped him, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, oh, I got a Finnish player there, blah blah blah, whatever. Um, and I think Colorado was still on the list. I think he kept that team on his fourth because he just wanted to stay in Colorado, but that's fine. Um, but maybe he thought he can get Kyrou, but the Blues got back in the race, so they didn't sell. Maybe he thought he could get Pedersen from Vancouver, and he was just going to figure out the salaries after the season. And that didn't turn into anything. So what I think ended up happening is I do think that Fitzgerald went big game hunting and came up short, and he deserves criticism for that, right? Like the trade deadline did not work in his favor. The Devils looked dreadful right after it. It looked like a team that didn't buy the right pieces. You go to the game in Philadelphia, and there was still an ickiness to the team on Sunday. I know you come out with the win, and Jake Allen plays fantastic. Only allows one goal to Philadelphia. I didn't see much from the Brat line. I didn't see that top line of Brat, Nico, Timo. I didn't see much out of them. You saw something out of the third line of Eric Hollis scored a goal finally for the first time since the Biden administration, and Cody Glass scored his first goal as a Devil. Dawson Mercer gets a goal, an empty netter that seals the game. Like you didn't get from the top line, so we're still like an ickiness just how they were playing. You just didn't see it last night. I think this team. I'm trying not to speak for the players, but for about a month, the team just goes down and turtles. There's no bite. There's no oomph. There's no rev to the engine. And
I call it
when they
pizzazz.
do,
That's what I've been saying.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that the Dallas game, they finally showed fight, and then lost with 4 seconds left. I think it did a lot to them, and you saw it with the Winnipeg game where it's like, all right, let's try to come back again. They score that first goal, and then I think it was Simon Nemet's mistake made it 4-1, and the whole team just gave up. Like truly, or they played like it. I don't want to speak for them. They played like they gave up. And Markstrom, I wrote about this last night. Markstrom hasn't been good since he returned. Bad. Not oh, you haven't been playing up to your standard from when you were here. He's been bad. And I'm not worried. He came back from a pretty brutal knee injury. So you give him some time, but I don't think you can afford to just keep trotting him out there and play his way to hell. I think you got to trot out Jake Allen, who's playing out of his mind, and make Markstrom the backup throughout March, and then make Markstrom the starter again in April, and hope he rolls into the playoffs on a good streak. But there's just a lot with this team, and last night was the biggest game of the season. I think that I'm not overstating it when I say that, but last night was the type of game that should start a streak, and you're immediately tested because Edmonton's tomorrow. This team has. Last night was the first time the Devils have beaten a playoff team, Sam, since January 11th. That's a long time in between wins against good teams. And I'm not even talking about, they haven't even beaten a Detroit or an Ottawa or that ilk. Your best win is against, Montreal. This is ridiculous. So, since the Tampa win in overtime on January 11th, haven't won a game against a playoff team. They've lost every single one. They've stayed afloat because they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. But this Devils team is supposed to beat playoff teams once in a while. You can't lose to every single one. So beating Columbus was huge. It was a huge game. they showed out and they showed off. They did the right things. They scored on a goalie who's been lesser than for most of the season still. I think he has an under a 900 save percentage. So you did the things you haven't been doing, what you're supposed to. And my big thing from last night, Sam, that was different from Sunday, is the guys you need to step up in Jack Hughes' absence stepped up. Nico Hischier started the scoring off. You need the captain to do that. Timo Meier scored one, probably should have scored more. Luke Hughes scored a goal. You're getting the goals from the guys that you needed. Jesper Bratt has more points again. Jesper Bratt, I think, is 7th in the league in points. He's having a phenomenal season, even though he's not putting in the back of the net. He's just killing it on the assists, and those are important. Like he's setting his guys up, and I saw everything I needed to see out of the Devils last night. I think about everything they needed to do in that game and everything they needed to prove. And outside of Markstrom, because again, he wasn't great last night, but the Devils scored 5 goals, and Markstrom's not going to get shelled too often. I think you got everything you needed to see. You saw everything. I think Sheldon Keefe saw everything you needed to see out of that team. I think you have to have things to build off of. Paul Cotter scored a goal after he was benched, which is exactly what you want to see. You want a motivated Paul Cotter because he can score. He can light the lamp. He has proven that this year. I say everything I want to see. So, I'm confident now, which is weird. I haven't been confident in this team in a while.
Well, it's good. It's always good to be confident because things change when you start winning. 2 in a row. They're trying to build on it. They want to go streaking right now down the stretch. Edmonton Oilers. Tomorrow's not going to be an easy team to beat, but if they do, there better not be a letdown when they play the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday. But again, not to jump ahead. There were a lot of good juju last night. The Mrs. Fields thing was awesome. On so many levels, because Devils fans after that trade deadline, which again, to me, sometimes doing nothing is the best thing than overdoing it. And sometimes you have to be patient and let things play out. Now, you can make the other argument, well, we've been patient for 13 years. I get it. But you don't. After Jack Hughes, it was announced that Jack Hughes is done for the season. Dougie Hamilton's going to be out for an extended period of time. And we all know Jonas Siegenthaler is definitely out. And having that trade deadline.
Which was a surprise, right? I didn't think he was going to be out for the season.
Yeah. Having that trade deadline on that March 7th, I thought it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because when there was announced that he got Cody Glass, I was happy. I've been following his career since Nashville when he was drafted, and I think he's a very good player. I think a change of scenery will do him very well. He's going to be a restricted free agent after this season, I believe.
Yeah.
And, all my rant about wanting Logan Cooley in that third-line center, this guy can fill that void at a very reasonable price. And, again, you want role players. And that bottom 6, so far, Cody Glass, I know it's only been 2 games. If you had Cody Glass on the bottom 6, that centerman, there's your Michael McLeod replacement for that bottom.
That's what I'm
6.
thinking.
Yeah,
he's your energy line. I don't want to call it fourth line because you can play them more minutes than a traditional fourth line. He's your energy line, your crash line, your whatever you want to say. And you build around that, and
he's a good kid too. He's a good kid, good attitude.
Yeah, and he seems like a down to earth human. You want Tom Fitzgerald said he wanted no D heads before the season. Like, this is the exact kind of guy you want. He's and I'm sure he's probably eclectic just based on like some of the videos that I've seen, but in the best possible way. Like, he has cool hobbies, and he cares about his environment and the community. So these are the things that I want out of my players. I want them to sign him to a significant deal, not like a lot of money, but like 3, 4, 5 years. Like, I want Cody Glass here for a while. I think he's the type of player that you want to stick around, and I bet you he will value that just locking your family in, right? Because he talked about he's been traded like 3 times the past year or two.
Yep.
So he talked about just kind of moving all over the place. He was with Vegas, and then he was somewhere before Pittsburgh, right?
Nashville. Well, Nashville. Vegas, and Pittsburgh.
Okay, so he started in Nashville. Oh, he was the guy who got traded for Nolan Patrick, right?
I have to go back.
I think so. Anyway, it's fine. I'm throwing you on the spot, and I should have done the research on that. But this is a player I like. I think his best days are ahead of him. What is he? He's 24?
Yeah, 24, 25. And the other thing too with Chase Stillman,
it was a bad pick.
It was a bad pick. I mean, this is another podcast.
Logan Stango was on the board. Like, it was such a bad pick.
But let's put it this way: you don't have to worry about Chase Stillman ever developing. You've got somebody that's already developed and is a proven NHLer, and that can serve the Devils well for 5 years. Yeah. If you were to re-sign at the right price, you could add him to Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes down the middle. At 6'3".
Yeah, and that's so huge. It's huge. He makes Eric Hall expendable if you want to move him in the offseason.
Or even Dawson Mercer, if you think about it. I know Mercer plays wing, but he's kind of listed as a centerman, so
Yeah, I mean,
for the right trade.
I know a lot of people are down on Dawson Mercer. This feels like when people were down on Bratt.
Mm-hmm.
It feels. I don't think Mercer will ever be Bratt, but I think he's going to be a consistent 60 to 70 point player every single year for his prime. For like 26 to 30, 25 to 32, somewhere in that range. I think he's going to be like a Peter Sikora type. Like a guy who could put the puck in the net pretty good, but Peter Sikora was never going to be a Hall of Famer or anything like that. Like, I think this is what I'm hoping that you get out of Dawson Mercer. I said this before. I think I even said this with Bratt. These contract negotiations that go a little too long tend to derail seasons.
Yep.
And I know he was, what he missed, like a week of training camp, something like that. He just never recovered. And like the snowball's falling, but here's the thing. And I think you're looking at him and Timo. I just don't. I'm kind of all right, just kind of calling the season on Mercer, just saying this is what he is. He's a bottom 6 contributor. He'll score, an occasional goal. You just hope it comes at a really opportune time. But in future years, he's shown to go on 6 streaks where he'll score 6 goals in 8 games. And he'll carry the team offensively. He'll put like 20 points up in a month, at some point. And he reminds me a lot in that way of Timo Meier. But they're completely different players, but just in their streakiness. I think you're about to get one of those streaks from Timo Meier. Timo Meier has been cooking all of 2025, and it just hasn't – the dominoes haven't fallen. I think you're seeing a situation where the corner is turning in front of your eyes. And I think that Timo Meier is going to put up some insane numbers. I think that he's going to, I can almost say I think Timo has too. Or sorry, I think Nico Hischier has too much of a lead on him. But remember last year he had that insane March, and all of a sudden he led the team in goals. So
Well,
I don't think that's out of the question as far as the streak. He's only got 18 goals right now, so like I don't think he's going to catch Nico Hischier, but I wouldn't be floored if he got. Let's see, how many games are left? Like 28.
we passed 66 yesterday.
So you had 26, or you had 16. I mean,
Yep.
right?
Well,
16.
82
Okay.
minus 66. Help me here.
I think he could hit 25 goals. I just think he's going to go on a streak like that, where he scores 7 goals for the last 16 games.
Well, here's the difference. Not just Timo Meyer, but the entire team since the Flyers game on Sunday. They are much more decisive in their decision making than they have been in a long time. Like, if they're going to go hard to the net, they're going to go hard to the net 120%. If they're going to go down the ice and play the north-south game, they're going to go down the ice 120% with no hesitation. And when you play that kind of no hesitation hockey, guess what? You don't overpass. You get fancy. You're looking for the perfect shot. No, you're just going to get the puck on the net. Don't worry about the stats and just play some good hockey out there. And you see that in Timo Meyer. You see that in Jesper Bratt. Paul Cotter, when he got out of the box and got that puck, and he had all that energy after being benched, after taking the penalty, which he was not too pleased with the refs, and just zoom down the ice and score. Don't think, do. And I think they're playing better. And I kind of alluded to this a couple times. I've been saying this on this podcast and elsewhere, that without Jack Hughes, if you can understand where I'm coming from, with Jack Hughes' hockey IQ is like through the roof. With him not in the lineup, I think the Devils can kind of evolve and play a more simpler game, and which really suits them. I think it's going to be a better team overall down the stretch without Jack Hughes. And I'm not knocking Jack Hughes. I'm just saying that if they can make the adjustment team-wise as a whole, all 4 lines, the defense, the goaltending, because the way they played, remember in the beginning of the season, Jack Hughes, didn't he get off to a slow start right out of the gate?
Relatively.
Yeah, but the team was doing well. And
again, relatively.
Yeah. But, again, this is Sheldon's first season. I think right now...
I think... Go ahead.
I think they're right now, without Jack Hughes, I think the Devils are going to learn how to play without Jack Hughes and learn how to play as a team. So next season, when Jack Hughes comes back, it's going to be a much better situation than if he was in the lineup right now.
I agree with you, but I think I have a different reasoning. I don't think the lineup's going to play better without Jack Hughes because I mean, they've played without Jack Hughes before, but also, Jack Hughes' impact on the lineup is limited to his line, and I think Jesper Bratt does a lot of driving on that line that people don't give him credit for. Or at least a lot of setting up Jack Hughes in opportune situations, or at least pulling the defense away from him. And then Palat. I mean, I don't think Palat's going to be better without him. But here's where I agree with you. I think Jack Hughes' injury is going to force Sheldon Keefe to be a better coach, and I think it's going to force him to learn how to coach this lineup without Jack Hughes to make them score. And his reliance on his stars is something that he's always done. Right? He did it in Toronto. He did it with the Marlies. He's been. It's easy to fall into that trap. I also think you got a star in Jack Hughes is like, I got you, coach, and he delivers. Right? The problem with that is that when you keep going to the guy like I got you, like teams are going to learn how to stop that. They're not going to learn how to stop Paul Cotter and Nico Heischer and Timo Meyer and Jesper Bratt and Seven Nason and if Dawson Mercer. If you're getting quality chances, you got Cody Glass now scoring. You got Daniel Sprong is a menace when he's in the lineup as far as like putting the puck in the net. I think what that's going to do is teach Sheldon Keefe, all right, this is the rest of the lineup scoring. This is how you get them to score. You put them in this situation. You put them in that situation. You get really good results when you have this. You have really good results when you have that. And next year, you get all of that coaching and then insert Jack Hughes line back in. And you don't have to rely on the Jack Hughes line. Now it's an addition to a quality lineup. So you're, instead of it being Jack Hughes and everyone else, which is, I think it's what it's been for about a month. I don't think that this is whole season. There's been some quality scoring from like Nico Heischer's line, especially like those early days with Stefan Nason and I can't remember if it was Jesper Bratt or Timo Meyer, but you were getting some quality scoring from those earlier lines. But you really needed, once the book was out on the Devils, and I think you've pointed this out before, Sam, where it's like that it's not the neutral zone trap, but it's like a version of it. When you realize that's really hindering them, they're having trouble exiting the zone. They're having more trouble entering the offensive zone, and it's really hindering the offense. I think you have to, that's the Jack Hughes model, right? You're trying to get out of the zone with Jack Hughes with the puck on a stick. You're trying to get into the zone with Jack Hughes skating through five guys, and it was working about as much as you'd expect it to, and it was just because it's Jack Hughes, right? He'd had to like be the world's greatest stick handler for it to work, and he had to pay. Like we've talked about this, like he was playing such a high risk game, like he was trying to pass into windows like this big. Like I look at it and I was like, you're playing carnival games at all time. And what I mean by that is to win the big prize at the carnival games, you can do it. You just need to be so perfect that it's not a good, consistent approach. Like, you don't see a lot of people. You see, every time you go to the carnival, you see one or two people with the giant shark or the giant banana, but you don't see people with 7 giant bananas, right? Because there's a little bit of luck that's involved with trying to be perfect. And the Devils have no luck. So taking Jack Hughes out of the lineup will take out that need for perfection and kind of focus a little bit more on just that need to be precise. There's a difference between perfection and preciseness. Preciseness is, mining out the details, making sure that you think of all possible scenarios and all possible outcomes, and then making your decision. Perfection is, I'm going to make an attempt at something with such a low level of delivery, but I believe that I can deliver on that low, on that low percentage.
Very well said, Nick. Very well said.
I am not one of those people, though, that says this lineup is better without Jack Hughes. Like, I don't think the Devils are better without Jack Hughes.
Well, I tried to talk to Chico about it, and he looked at me like I was like an idiot. But I think maybe I worded it, I could have worded it better. But I just feel like without Jack in the lineup, it's like it forces these guys to do better, and we're seeing the snarl, what they had in the first third of the season. The snarl's back a little bit, You
also had a little bit more skill. This team overdid it on the grit in the offseason. They got slow. Their shots got worse in the offseason. They added pieces I really like. They needed one more skill position. I think Cody Glass adds that. I think Daniel Sprong adds that. I don't like taking Sprong out of the lineup after how well he played on Sunday. So I hope they find a lineup that makes a little bit more sense. Um, what that is, I don't know off the top of my head, but I hope they find it.
Yeah, I hope they find it. But
But Sam, I do want to quickly before we leave.
yep.
I know we're near the end. I did want to address my absence just real quick. I know I've been missing for 2 weeks. I do apologize to the people who've missed us. Uh, we've had a family emergency. The past 2 weeks, I've been in the hospital most days. After this podcast, I'm going back to the hospital. Just dealing with the situation. Everybody's okay. There's going to be a positive end game, but I appreciate everybody's patience. It hasn't been an easy time, but my wife is a rock. Our family is a rock. We're going to be fine, but that's why I don't want you to think we just didn't feel like doing the podcast or Sam had anything to do with this or whatever. Sam's been cranking out episodes. I appreciate the Let's Go Devils podcast, keeping people subscribed and informed, but we're going to do our best to stay consistent, through the playoffs, and we'll be here when there's things to talk about and things like that. But just want to address that real quick and just say, we're there's a reason for it. It is what it is. Something we're dealing with, and go from there.
Yeah, and well, next time I see you, Nick, I'm going to get you some Mrs. Fields cookies.
Yeah, I need cookies.
Yeah,
I need cookies.
I'm gonna send cookies your way. I'm gonna send cookies your way. You know what I want to do? I want to do a football call of the Mrs. Fields cookie race.
Oh, that'd be funny.
I'm actually considering. Let me ask the audience before we go. Would you want that? I'll take the video of last night's cookie race and or dessert race and make it into a football call. I don't know how I'd do that.
Listen, you just treat it like a running back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, listen, I'm ready for plugs when you are, Sam.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
PucksandPitchforks.com. Big week. Listen, we've definitely been cranking out the articles. I had I really dove into why last night to win was important, and what it means for the Devils moving forward. Why it really put them in position to kind of calm down a little bit and just kind of play your game. So that's up at Pucks and Pitchforks. I also wrote about, I said this, why Jake Allen should be your starter just for March. Just get you through the month. Let Jacob Markstrom kind of heal a little bit. I'm going to write about the Sheldon Keefe is going to be a better coach without Jack Hughes. I'm going to write that tonight from the hospital, actually. So that'll be just for those listeners. They get a little understanding that these articles are being written in the hospital. So if there's a typo, don't be too hard on me. But that's coming soon. Oh, and Sam, guess what's coming soon?
What's coming?
The updated top 25 prospects.
Wow!
Out. Let's say Wednesday. I'm going to try to get that up Friday. My list is done. I obviously had to make some adjustments because the Devils decided to trade a bunch of people. So I gotta figure out where I'm going to put like LaChance, like where he's gonna slot in. I got to take out Stillman. Got to take out Beckman. Which the Beckman trade was weird. I thought, that was the guy they traded for Graham Clark. I thought he was going to get an NHL shot at some point. They just must have not liked how he fit with this team. One thing I do wish, I am sad that Brian Hallinan is not getting a chance with the NHL club. But, they just, I guess they know what they got.
Yeah.
Although there's no roster limit, so maybe you just get him into a game.
Well, there's only so many spots, Nick.
I get it.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow it's going to be a triple header Thursday. I'm not going to be at American Whiskey, unfortunately. And again, unfortunately, I couldn't be at American Whiskey last night. I really wanted to be there in the worst way, but life gets in the way. But we're going to have At the Point with me and Bruce Zeman. Then Game Day Live with Vinny Parisi and I. And then Devils After Dark with Scotty and I. Recap that Oilers game. I'll try to work on that football call for that race. Adam Hamway did a great job. I don't want to copy Adam Hamway's. That's why I'm hesitant doing it, but, whatever. But I'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah.
I should have.
I'm looking for the football call will give me life. So
we should have done it, but the problem is Scotty didn't know, and I was thinking about maybe telling him. Yeah, but anyway, the great dessert race, at the Rock. But yeah, you know what? It could be one of these moments in sports where you just point to Mrs. Fields coming through. And the entire
weirder things have spurned a big win streak.
I'll tell you, once you start thinking positively, winning solves everything, and then suddenly you're streaking. Just remember that. All right. Well, I want to thank all those tuning in, dropping the podcast at midnight. Remember, triple header Thursday, tomorrow. Till next time, let's go Devils.